The Nikon Z8 or the Nikon ZF, which camera is best for you? Well, Nikon sent me both these cameras plus an incredible lineup of lenses to play with, and I'm here to share my thoughts. Full disclosure, in addition to Nikon sending me these cameras to review and test out, I have never shot with a Nikon camera until about 2 months ago. I had never, until now, considered Nikon a video first or video friendly type of camera. However, with the Z line being hybrid and the acquisition of Red, it kind of tells me that they want to focus more on the filmmaking community, and so I wanted to give it a shot. After 2 months of heavy testing, and I mean, I put both these cameras through the ringer in terms of utilizing it in every scenario in which I would utilize this camera as a creator and filmmaker, I'm happy to share some of my findings. Initially, Nikon had sent me their Z8 camera specifically to utilize in my next filmmaking project, and I actually did. I was able to shoot the entire episode with Shuang Hu, aka The One Shu. She is a wonderful comedian, actress, content creator. If you haven't checked out that episode, please do so on the Nicki Sun Show, both on Spotify and YouTube. But I shot the entire episode on 3 Nikon Z8 cameras. Yes, that's right. So shout out to Nikon for actually sending me more than one to film my multicam video podcast. I paired the Nikon Z8 camera with a 14-30 lens for the wide shot, the 50 for my guest, and the 28-75 for me. I will say that after filming, I utilized the Nikon Z8 with the 50 1.2S lens for a couple of stills. And I will say, looking at them makes me feel like I could actually be a photographer. It was that smooth. The bokeh was chef's kiss. I wish I could keep this lens. With the Nikon Z8 camera, we're talking 45.7 megapixel stills, 12-bit 4K 60p shooting in ProRes RAW, and up to 12-bit 8K 60p if shooting in NRAW. A nifty sensor shield that once you toggle it on the menu settings, when you take off your lens, the sensor shield automatically comes up. A 4-axis touchscreen, 2 USB-C ports, one dedicated strictly for transferring files and connecting accessories, and another dedicated to providing constant power. Subject detection and autofocus can work all the way down to a negative 6.5 exposure value. However, if you turn on starlight mode in the menu, you now have access to low noise up to negative 9 exposure value. Even with all the amazing specs in the Nikon Z8, it just wasn't the camera for me, mostly because it had a 1-hour battery life and most of my interviews literally are an hour, so I had no ability to just go over at all. I essentially had to press record and know exactly where I was going and navigating with my guests. In addition, if I were to be a one-woman band, which sometimes is the case when I travel with all my cameras, I need to be able to flip out a screen because being able to shoot in tight spaces and traveling light, I don't have the opportunity to always bring external monitors with me, so having an articulating, fully flipped out screen would have been nice. So for those 2 reasons alone, I had reached back out to Nikon and asked, hey, saw on your website you have a Nikon ZF, which has 2 hours of continuous battery power in addition to a fully articulating screen. Can I try these instead? And much to my gratitude and excitement, they said they would send me the Nikon ZF. First of all, can I just say how much I absolutely love this retro but modern design of the Nikon ZF. You have tactile brass dials specifically controlling the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture settings on here. You also have the ability to generate 96 megapixel stills in addition to having up to a 4K 60p but oversampled from 6K. So you're getting that 6K image within a 4K area and your images are just going to be that much more crisp. The Nikon ZF also has an internal 10-bit H.265 in SDR, N-Log, and HLG. The Nikon ZF actually has the widest ISO range amongst the entire Z series cameras, with ISO levels from 100 to 64,000 for stills and ISO levels 100 to 51,200 for videos. The ZF also has the lowest of any of the Z series in regards to exposure values, all the way down to -10 exposure value. I will say there are a couple of features that you do sacrifice. For instance, there is no sensor shield, so unfortunately when you do take off the lens, there is no shield that blocks the sensor. You have one USB-C port instead of two, and this one's more for transferring files. There's also a dual card slot that holds both an SD and a micro SD card. However, it's in the same area as the battery, and I wish it was in a separate area just like the Z8. The Z8 also has a dual card slot, but it is one SD card and one CF Express card. With the Z8, you get a full HDMI output, but with the ZF, you get a mini HDMI output. However, it still has all the functions that I would need personally, with the headphone jack to monitor audio levels, in addition to a 3.5mm audio input. I will say that the Nikon Z8 is a little better ergonomically because you actually have a holster to hold on to, whereas the Nikon ZF, there's nothing here. So it took a little getting used to in order for me to operate this camera. The one caveat where it wasn't as intuitive as I'd like was the autofocus. Quite frankly, there were just too many options. In addition to their single, continuous, and full frame autofocus modes, there are additional focus mode features like pinpoint, small area, dynamic, medium, large, and even 3D focusing, which is cool once you get the hang of it. It was easier to select focus when I was operating from behind the camera. However, for many creators who film themselves in front of the camera like me, having just a face or product mode would have sufficed. It's just unfortunate because I lost a lot of focus and therefore footage in my earlier stages of testing from not knowing what mode to be in. But I'm sure as I get more familiar with each mode, I'll learn to better adapt. And comparing the Z8 with the ZF, it's actually wild to think that the ZF actually has the same powerful processor as the Z8 and Z9, and at almost half the price. The ZF also has an articulating flip-out screen in addition to 2 hours of continuous battery life. And honestly, for this screen alone and being able to film more than an hour when I'm recording my podcast, the ZF is the camera I would choose. This is just a fun camera all around. Did I mention that there is a dedicated black and white feature, truly bringing you back to just the joy of shooting? Well, that was my honest review and thoughts after utilizing the Nikon Z8 and the Nikon ZF for a solid 2 months now. Also, disclaimer that this entire video was shot on the Nikon ZF paired with the 14 to 30mm lens. All in all, for someone who has never shot with a Nikon camera before or never even considered utilizing a Nikon camera for video reasons, Nikon has some serious footing, and with this acquisition of Red, it only leads me to believe that it's going to get even bigger and better in the future. So which one was your favorite camera? Let me know in the comments below, and also if I didn't cover anything you want to know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!